Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Albandian. I'm the coordinator for ISAR 2022, which is happening this year, August 25th through the 29th. It's happening in Westminster, Colorado at the Westin, which is right in between Denver and Boulder. It's beautiful. It's going to be great weather. And today I'm here with my colleague, Roy Gillett, and he will be one of 100 speakers presenting to you on a variety of topics. And so welcome, Roy, and thank you for taking time out of what I know are very busy schedules for most astrologers. For those of you who don't know who Roy is, he's a full-time astrologer since 1976. He advises on astrology software. He speaks at many international conferences, researches financial astrology, and has edited the English translation of two André Béraud books. Roy has published mundane forecasts with compassionate emphasis since 1978. His new book, Working with the Planets, Clear Understanding, Better Decisions, published last year, I hope, and selected from his 20-year bi-monthly column with commentary and historical references. So you can find more information at crucialastrotools.co.uk for exploring what Roy has to offer. So Roy, I know in England, you guys had an in-person and sort of a simulcast, a hybrid conference, and that was at the end of 2021, was that true?
Yeah, it was the Halloween weekend, at the end of October 21, yeah.
Right, so you did a hybrid, and so you guys have had that experience of coming back a bit together. This will be really one of the first big conferences in the US. There've been some smaller ones. The Vibrational Astrology Conference just happened, but this will be a big one happening. So how do you feel about getting back together with your colleagues, meeting, seeing each other? Is that exciting?
Well, I mean, the experience last year, of course, was only about 200 or so of us together, but as better. Usually it's 300 or a bit more, but it was remarkably all right. I mean, that was the thing. People were worried. We had no issues regarding COVID. The centre was very carefully organised with very special air conditioning, not enough standard air conditioning. So it always seemed very fresh and clear. And no one, as far as I know, has ever reported as having COVID or received it as a result of it. So that was good. It was just unbelievable to be down there, just like it had been over the years. I mean, I've been coming to US conferences since 2000. And most years, quite often, you know, and it's a wonderful experience to be back together. Of course, we've had our AA conferences every year, and it's just as before. So I'm encouraging people to say, come and give it a try. It'll be all right. You know, it's going to be fine.
It's going to be great. And I was talking to Wendy Stacy, and she said the feeling of being back together, it was just kind of a sweet kind of feeling of being able to see everyone, or at least the people who were there. So, you know, being able to be in space with our colleagues and making new friends and meeting new people, everyone who's
it's wonderful to have the hybrid as well, though, to have that contact with people who can't get to conference. I think that is something we've learned from the last couple of years, that there are a lot of people out there who want to be at conference who just can't make it for one reason or other. And so this is really good for astrology if we can do the two things together and extend the family and really work together with astrology.
I agree. So you're doing two lectures for ISAR. You're doing one on Friday, the 26th. And the title of that is What's Really Happening in Our Times?
I mean, what I want to say is that I drafted these talks. I don't know if it was late 2018 or early 2019, because the ISAR conference designed for 2020 was organized well ahead. And I had everything, books, hotel, everything. So, you know, this I have slightly adjusted this title. But when I looked ahead and saw what was like to be coming up from the astrological point of view at the time I'll be giving it in 2020, now I've adjusted it slightly to 2022. And you can see just how incredibly remarkable it is. And what I tend to do, those who've heard my talks before, I always remind you that this is a time of great change that's really got an aeonistic quality to it. I mean, it hasn't been anything quite like this for about 5,000 years, where what we had in 2020 was as big of a change as that. And certainly the whole period of the last couple of decades has been focusing on the last 500 years, and particularly, of course, the last 300 years with the build-up of the colonial capitalist system, which is now going through a lot of strain. And with the current events happening in the world, having come through COVID since I first drafted this, there's going to be a lot of astrological basis. And the wonderful thing is that the astrology of these years since I drafted this has been very accurate. We've had notable astrologers, particularly Andre Babu, who you mentioned, has predicted the pandemic. The changes that happened in 20 have been predicted by many people for many years. And now you have a chance to put our energy together to look at what's coming next. First of all, to understand the present, and that's been really anticipated. The Ukraine war and the actually emotional experience that's dominating the world at the moment was really anticipated over the last few articles I've written in the journal. And now I'm looking ahead very carefully to what's coming and see if we can find a way of getting astrology to help the world. You know, I mean, if we understand the astrological foundation, we can make better decisions. This has been my main aim of my work for decades now, to get people to use astrology to help them make better decisions so they can have happy personal lives and have a happier world to live in. And hopefully we can talk about that a bit in this talk.
Excellent. Yeah, and hope is good, you know, having something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So Sunday lecture on the 28th is called The Astrology of the Rise, and then in parentheses, in the fall, question mark, of
yeah, I know, yeah. And the brink of drafting that in 2018, it just seemed a likely possibility, maybe from what was happening in America to a certain extent and Russia to a certain extent. But look how much it's accelerated and intensified since then. It's just that nationalism is the intrinsic problem. You can look at it from several points of view. I mean, it's the nationalism in Ukraine is working both ways in a way, although you can understand why a nation doesn't want to be invaded. I'm not trying to criticize the Ukrainians, but I'm just saying is a very strong nationalism on their part as well as on the Russian part. And of course, when you look at the transits of the 1930s, when you have Pluto in Cancer, Neptune in Virgo, and Uranus in Taurus, and then compare it to the present time where we're just coming out of, well, we've still got Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune in Pisces, and Uranus in Taurus. So you get the opposition of the signs. And what I want to really do, and I'm going to do a lot of thinking about this, and I'd like to see what happens in the next couple of months. So I'm going to be really fine-tuning this talk right up to the wire, because I want to see what's the difference between a Cancer Virgo fascism, which is what it was. You know, we want the world, the Aryan race, the whole idea, the communist attitude under Stalin, you know, that contrast and the fact that Franco and so on that was going on in the 30s to what we got now, which is incredible sympathy, empathy, suffering alongside an authoritarian struggle for structures and systems. How are the two things complementing each other, these two opposite signs? This is a very exciting concept to not only give you some ideas on, but I'm also going to want to be drawing on the crowd, you know, the people who come to the meeting, to the talk, to see what their ideas are, because this is quite a fundamental thing that we're going to be dealing with over the coming years.
I couldn't agree with you more, Roy, to be honest, right? I think this title, and it's stunning, as you said, you developed these talks in 2018, 2019, and how particularly the second on nationalism has been, without sounding too hyperbolic, I think it is a worldwide issue, and it is the nexus of a lot of our trouble And so it is an epidemic of its own, this nationalism.
Yeah.
So
You have to ask the question of whether what we're experiencing in the moment is like, you know, we had this climate conference in Glasgow at the end of last year, which was a bit of a damp squib, really, in terms of what effect it's going to have. It might have some help, but, you know, and it's almost like the planet saying, look, wake up, wake up, wake up. It can't carry on like this. We've got this incredible economic sanction regime, which is going to totally undermine the structure of the world economy if it goes on for too much longer, you know. So it's almost like forcing us to see the consequences of nationalism in its narrow sense, to be proud of your nation, but not to be fanatical about that pride, you know, to celebrate everyone's nature, not just your own, but be just as proud of your own. It doesn't take anything away from you, it just adds something to you. I live in London, which is one of the most cosmopolitan countries, areas in the world, really. It certainly is a large city, maybe New York too, but it's very cosmopolitan. And, you know, it's wonderful to live alongside this. When the Queen had her one of her Jubilee celebrations, a whole rush of nationalities and cultures came down the Mall to the palace to work to sort of honour her. You know, this is what we want in the world, not this kind of splitting me against you. I'm going to fight you if you don't do what I like, you know. So I'm hoping that by astrology, we can see the objectivity. We're all going through the same transits.
Right.
Just how do we want to use them? Do you want to, if you're going through a Mars transit, do you want to hit somebody until they're dead? Or do you want to get very, very busy to work together to create something beautiful? You know, I mean, there's a choice. We've got to start making the right ones.
Exactly. Roy, I want to tell everyone that this, you know, Roy is really amazing at what he does. A lot of information. You want to see what he has to offer and join him in the conversation. You can go to isar2022.org to find all the information you will need on the conference and to register. You'll want to be there with us. It's going to be a great time. There's so much to learn and so much to experience for this conference. Joining us in Hearts and Minds for August 25th through the 29th, ISAR 2022. Thanks so much, Roy. I really appreciate it.